All right. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. And as part of this 12-week program, I'm bringing on many of my top clients. Joining us this morning is Jeffrey Saad, and Jeffrey works in the Beverly Hills office with Compass. And before you launch into what you want to share, Jeffrey, I want to ask one question of everyone that I bring on, and this will probably tie into what you're going to talk about anyway. What is it that you think you do best in real estate? What do you do best in real estate?
Is that question for me, Steve, or the group?
My question is for you.
Oh, for me, without a doubt, what I do best in real estate has nothing directly to do with real estate. It's that I have the right mindset. I'm constantly working on the right mindset because if you don't bring your best self, it doesn't matter how many contacts you're making. It doesn't matter what your business plan is. It doesn't matter how much you pay Steve, which of course he is worth 100 times what you pay him. But none of it will matter if you don't have the right mindset because the client, the world feels your energy. They understand what you're putting out there more than you can ever imagine.
All right. So that ties into what we're talking about, mindset this week. So talk to the group. What does mindset mean to you? And when you're working on it every day, what are you working on specifically?
Well, COVID was a wild thing because, well, first of all, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, anybody that has experienced loss or, in their family, my God, I am so sorry. The empathy is deeper than it could ever be. There's no way to explain that away. When COVID started, it was funny because I was in Cambodia with a really good friend of mine and people were freaking out, putting on masks on, and we were in all these airports and people were taking temperatures. And I was just very relaxed. And my buddy of 25 years had his mask on already and he was already planning his death. And he's like, "Why are you so relaxed?" And I said, "Because I'm immune." And he's like, "You're such a dick." Yeah. And of course I'm not immune, but the idea was from that moment, my mindset was going to be, this isn't going to affect me. I am going to move on with the right spirit, because if I start planning the end right now, that's not doing me or anyone around me any good. So I loved COVID as kind of my ultimate test, the final exam. Things broke out, people were panicking in the office, and we had these meetings back in March. And I said it then, and I really believed it, and I still do. I said, okay, all I need to know about COVID is that I got to sanitize, wash my hands, wear a face mask, and keep distance. I'm done. It's 5 minutes. That's how much time I spent on COVID is 5 minutes, because that's what's in my circle of control. And people in the office were talking about we're all in this together, and not just like a jerk, but I said, my client doesn't want to hear that we're all in this together. They want somebody to solve their problems. They need somebody to make things happen, to be their warrior and their confidant. They've got their sister, their mother, their brother to commiserate with. They need me to solve things. So my mindset was, I'm not going to worry about what I can't control. And I am literally going to emerge from COVID better than I began. That was my mindset last March. And I said, now what am I going to do to fulfill that? Because the second you start getting outside your circle of control, it's just a downward spiral. There's just no value in it. We've got to do what we can do. And I think that is the biggest part. And for me, Steve, as you know, my favorite story is, Steve, the best thing I ever did in my career was hiring Steve in 2001. And, he's like, go door knock. And, I'm like, okay. So I go door knock, and like 9 months later, I call him up and I'm like, on one of our calls, I'm like, yeah, Steve, this door knocking thing's not working out so well. I'm, kind of walking up and down the street sweating, and I've got no business. He's like, keep door knocking. I'm like, okay, so this isn't a conversation, keep door knocking. Okay. So I realized what needed to change was not the doors, was my mindset. So I went from saying, oh, I'm this sweaty Bible salesman walking up and down the street like an idiot, bothering people that don't want me at their door. And that was my mistake. I switched my mindset and I said, I'm the mayor of Bel Air. Like, these people are lucky to meet me because I am going to be their warrior, their confidant. I am going to make them and me a ton of money, change their world. And the second I switched that mindset, all of a sudden business started coming. I felt confident walking down the street. I was no longer thinking in a way that was, damaging me.
So people look at you, Jeffrey, and they go, well, that's Jeffrey. He can be that way. My story is different. What do you say to, that type of thinking?
What I say to that is don't think about anybody else, because nobody will screw you over more than yourself. It is unbelievable. My life started off not fun, and I won't bore you with those stories today. But the reality is, and I've learned in later in life that it kind of, annoys my son. He's like, Dad, you always say everything's so easy. And I realize that that's a separate challenge for the people around you, because nobody wants to feel like their challenges should be easy. But I told myself it was easy from a young age, and I believed it. And as a result, everything seems to be easier, because that's what I expect. And funny enough, when you break it down into little parts, it actually is pretty easy. Nothing's that hard if you just break it down. But I think it really starts with having a personal constitution. What is your internal compass? What is the GPS of your soul? Because if you're clear on what your guiding principles are going to be, everything gets really simple, because then you don't have to guess. Otherwise, you're just wandering about. If you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. So I rely on that. And again, this COVID was like a final exam, because I tapped into, what is my personal constitution? What do I believe in? And that's what keeps me on track. I think it's really three things. It's like having this personal constitution, having this guide, of what is good for you. And then I think it's also, everybody talks about, like Steve goes, oh, I read that book. Yeah, I read that book too. Great. That's barely skimming the surface of knowledge. The real issue is, okay, you read it, that's knowledge, but it's only valuable if it starts to become a routine, and we change as people. So when you keep rereading these things and studying these things you've learned, you keep getting more out of it, because you're not the same person you were the first time you read it, the first time you heard it. So now it becomes routine and it starts to feel good. It's, as we say, right? Your behaviors, form your habits, then your habits form, you. And then the last thing is it becomes ritual, because when the routine is so ingrained, then it becomes ritual, and then it starts to happen with ease. And in the beginning, I used to always say, you've just got to decide what's more painful, not achieving your goals or what it takes to achieve your goals. And I think that's something everybody has to decide, because if, for you, it's less painful to just, not make enough contacts or whatever it is you've agreed to do with yourself, well, then, that's going to be your thing. And then the last thing is your non-negotiables. And that's kind of part of your personal constitution. What are your non-negotiables? I decided from a young age, I will always be fit. I will stay in shape. It's silly, but I said, I'll always have a six pack and I'll always be able to do the splits, because I, grew up as a martial artist. And those two things by themselves are worthless. Who cares, right? Nobody's seeing me with my shirt off. But it's my own non-negotiable, because if I've made that commitment to myself, then it makes me stay in shape. To always make my wife, the woman of my dreams, feel like the most important person on the world, to always put my family first, to have financial freedom. But the real key to wealth and happiness is to first be happy with nothing. If it's only the wealth and the success that makes you happy, you're already in bad shape.
God, I love you. Um, so when I ask you, what do you do best? You say mindset. Talk about the work that you actually do to have this mindset that you're sharing with anyone, because it's not natural. You just didn't wake up one day and this was your mindset, and every day it's a great day because it is a great day. Talk about all the work that you put in to have this attitude every day.
Yeah, that's the right question, Steve. As always, you asked the right question, because it isn't natural for me. It wasn't where I began. Like I said, I had a rough childhood, and as a young entrepreneur, in college, right out of college, I was full of rage. Like I was the guy who would, punch somebody's windshield in the middle of an intersection at 22 years old. And I'll never forget, I read The Art of Happiness, the Dalai Lama, and man, it changed my life. And that kind of set the tone in my early 20s. And then from then on, I just kept reading and figuring out. I've been reading this personal constitution to myself for over 20 years and evolving it, because it is a practice. It is not something that is going to come natural, but it does start with, how you think. As you've always said, Steve, right? It's like, it's not just like, hey, positive thoughts, life's beautiful. No, but how you think affects your emotions. Your emotions affect your choices. Your choices affect your decisions. Your decisions affect your habits. Your habits form your life. So it does matter. But I always say people focus on the wrong 8 hours. It's about your 5 to 9. What are you doing from 5 to 9 in the morning and from 5 to 9 at night? Because if you wake up and the first thing you do is look at email, that's the mental equivalent of eating nachos for breakfast. I mean, talk about bogging yourself down and starting the day off wrong. I think it's one of the biggest things that I've done well for myself is that I've decided I will not engage. This has been for 20 years in what I call expiring information. Expiring now. I want knowledge. I want to use time to make myself better. Being a master of COVID and how many people have died and where the strain comes from and how it affects and who it affects and what, no value. Gone. How is that making your life better? Getting deep into the news and next door and crime reports and politics. Yeah, we all want to be, educated people in society, but I'd rather learn from the people around me and hear their opinion on the world. Believe me, you will get plenty of that information. But if you spend your day on expiring information and bogging yourself down with things that are outside of your circle of control, you're already off to a bad day. So I wake up, open my eyes. The first thing I do is I say, I love my life. And by the way, I don't always feel that way, but I say it because it sets the tone. And then if I'm really not loving my life, I immediately go to my personal constitution, which I read, and say, okay, where am I missing the mark? Because if I'm not loving my life, then something's, off skew and I need to get back on course. Will not check my email, will not look at news. I read my positive stuff. I read my daily stoic. Then I meditate. And now, kind of inspired by Arana, he dives in the ocean every morning, Steve, right? That's his big thing. Well, I started reading about Wim Hof and the ice bath stuff. So I do this breathing exercise and then I jump in the pool at 5:30 in the morning, freezing. You want to talk about waking up, Then I work out. Then I have my espresso, make my wife breakfast, enjoy the morning, enjoy the sunrise. Usually it's about 9:30 that I start looking at an email or checking in with stuff. So by 10 o'clock, I already feel like my life's a success. I've got a peaceful, happy mind. I've worked out. I've meditated. I've done what's good for me. Now I'm ready for the world. Instead of spending my day being 15 minutes behind, one contact behind, one project behind, instead I'm ahead of it. And I'm showing up with joy and I'm excited to take care of the client. Steve knows this and Steve helped me do this, as a new realtor. I used to, Friday at 4 o'clock, my voicemail would say, thank you so much for calling. I'll be checking all messages and returning calls Sunday morning. And people were like, you're a realtor. It's the weekend. I'm like, yes, how can I help you? And it was a perfect filter, right? Because the clients who were like, well, why aren't you working on the weekends? I don't want to work with those people. And then the ones who were like, oh my God, I forgot it's your family time. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you Sunday. And, I'd show up with engines roaring because I had my time off. I had my personal time. I had my peacefulness. It's better to be on for less and be 100% than be really consistent at sucking, because you never stop.
And what do you do 5 to 9 on the other end?
Well, that's the thing, right? Okay, sure. Like anybody, I like to party. I like to watch my Netflix. I like to do my stuff. But it's really important that you have your family, filling your soul's solar panel with sunlight. Are you there? Are you present? One of my favorite stories is my friend said he was sitting on the couch after work with his little daughter and she looked at him and goes, Daddy, are you in there? How painful as a parent to hear that, right? Like he's there interacting, but he's not there, so do you immediately go to the bar and start having cocktails? Do you have that extra drink? Do you commiserate about the day? This asshole client, this thing happened. Or do you embrace your family? Do you enjoy your evening? And obviously COVID's a little bit different because they've all been melded together more than ever all day long. It's this intertwined interaction. But do you immediately go to a dark place and kind of, kill your misery? Or do you go to a place where you're enjoying your family? Again, that's when I read my stuff that I like to read to get better. The morning is my inspirational stuff. The afternoon is what makes me better stuff, whatever it is I'm working on. So I do that stuff, cook a great meal, enjoy the family. And then of course I have a cocktail and watch my Netflix, but it's those bookends that really make the middle work. And instead of making the middle your entire day and getting spent and exhausted and getting to a negative place, if you bookend it, you show up like a rock star. And when you're not available, it's okay. Because as Steve said years ago, there are no emergencies in real estate. Houses don't bleed, so at half the time, Steve taught me that early on too, is that just by not answering the phone, your client will calm down, the escrow gets taken care of, something gets solved. I think it's just really important. It sounds so cliche, but you are not going to be on your deathbed and go, if I would have just closed that escrow on Loma Vista, my life would have been great. No, that's not what you're going to be saying. So, my goal, part of my personal constitution from the beginning has been, on my deathbed, I'm going to smile, say thank you. I'm not going to have any would have, should have, could have. I'm going to have did. And did doesn't mean it always goes well, but I won't have, I wonder what would have happened, because I'm doing what I believe in and what brings me joy. My last restaurant failed miserably, but it wasn't a failure because I enjoyed every day of it, because I loved the journey. If I had only done it because I wanted something in the end to happen, it wouldn't have been a success. But loving the journey makes the outcome much less important.
So, Jeffrey, when you get up every day, what are you thinking about in terms of your life? What's the thing that inspires you? What's the thing that keeps you getting up every day to, get after? What kind of things are you thinking about?
I really do wake up and say, I love my life. I look at the sunrise. It's about not about having what you want, but actually wanting what you have. It really is that gratitude. I have my gratitude journal, and it sounds so silly, but it's true. I literally write down every morning, I am grateful for, and I have just this scrolling long list. Garbage pickup. I'm grateful for my son doing well. I'm grateful for my amazing wife. Gratitude and optimism are my lifeblood. And I've learned that when I have a good outlook, when I'm grateful, everything just starts to manifest. I mean, it really does. We have this pineal gland that is like your eighth chakra, that is your antenna, your GPS, your Wi-Fi to the universe, and it will sync up with whatever you put out there. It doesn't mean I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean I don't fail. I fail often, but even in failure, I get motivated. There's a Japanese art called kintsugi. Kaizen is better every day, which, Steve, we both, thrive on. But kintsugi is this ancient form of taking broken porcelain cups, and they had to glue them back together with gold so that your big mistakes could still turn into something beautiful. So it's about constantly, it's just about how you look at it. It really is. It makes all the difference. So I get up with that gratitude and optimism that it's going to be the best day of my life. And then it usually ends up being a pretty darn good day. And I love what I do. I think that's the thing, the most important thing, every one of you. When you wake up, can you say, I love my life? And if you can't, then ask yourself, what would need to change for me to be able to say that? And as long as you're constantly tweaking so that you can say that, then things are probably in line.
And I think it's really important that people understand that shitty things happen to you. Life is not a bed of roses. It's not like you can be this way because everything's so great and wonderful. You're not immune to tough stuff.
Steve, you remember 2008, I sold the biggest home of my career. We made the $1 million net, as you promised me I would if I just listened to you, and I freaking listened to you, and it happened. I'm at the top of my game, and all of a sudden I'm like, I think I should be on the Food Network. A friend was over, I'm a cook, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. You're right, I should. I'm like, let's quit real estate and be on the Food Network. And my wife's like, I'm with you as always, but should we have a plan? I'm like, the plan is that's what I want to be doing. And all my dreams came true. I was on a show. I got my own show, 5 years of just, right? And then I'm like, why doesn't my agent answer my phone calls anymore? No shows, everything kind of fizzled out. So I thought, I got an idea. I'll open a restaurant. What a perfect thing to do while I'm waiting for my next food show. And I continued to lose money. I was like, but I'd be in the dining room, full crowd, because we're always busy in the basic dinner rush hour. So you think a restaurant's successful, but you need to be busy all night, to really succeed. And my wife's like, no, this is not great. We're losing money every day. The kids should probably go to college. So all of a sudden here I am, show gone, restaurant failing, but I'm actually enjoying it all. But then I'm like, all right, now all of a sudden I'm feeling like a failure. I'm like, I guess I'm going back to real estate. I guess I can't be this chef TV personality. I guess I have to just be a realtor and accept it. But then again, I reminded myself, what's that personal constitution? What do I believe in? And I switched my mindset and I said, you know what? Why can't I do both? And each one makes me better at the other one. And like freaking magic, we start selling houses left and right. I start getting all these infomercials and food projects. And all of a sudden I'm like, I've arrived. This is like the ultimate slash. I'm this and I'm this. I'm loving both. They both make me better at the other one. I mean, you want to sell a house? Tell your client how to sear that ossobuco so that it gets tender and falls off the bone. When you're engaging on a level that you don't care whether they buy the house, they end up buying the house because, as we all know, you're not really selling them a house anyway. You're facilitating their visceral need to have something, and it just changes the way you see it.
You still with us, Jeffrey?
Holy shit, he's awesome.
There you go. All right.
I want that also buco.
We'll do that
All right.
too.
So Jeffrey, you've now opened your own real estate company and you've got 223 people. Day one, this is your initial meeting. What are you saying to everybody on day one if they want to be in your company?
All right, guys, I'm going to say welcome. My simple goal is to make you better than I found you. And what we're going to do first step is I want you to close down your CRM. I want you to not think about your clients. I want you to think about yourself. Right now, everybody spend the next few days coming up with your personal constitution. What is the GPS of your soul? What matters to you? What do you want your life to look like? And start practicing these morning rituals. And for you, if it needs to be, a little bit later, that's fine. Although Steve knows I love that saying. There's two kinds of successful people: those that wake up naturally at 5 and those that set their alarm. But getting up right, I would say to you, give it a shot. Get up early. Do the things that make you uncomfortable, because that's what thickens your armor. I don't jump in the pool just because I like to be cold. I do it because it makes me use my mind to warm my body up and start the day right with a challenge. I get to start the day doing the thing I least want to do: get out of bed and jump in a cold pool, right? So I'm going to tell you to work on that personal constitution. We're going to share it with each other. We're going to get that going. I'm going to tell you, I don't want you returning calls or answering the phone after 6 o'clock at night. I don't want you looking at the news. No expiring. Make a list of everything. Are you being inspired or expired? Get things out of your life. Make a list of goodbyes. I'm not going to look at the news. I'm going to stop being a COVID expert. I'm going to stop worrying about what all the neighbors are doing with the van parked out front and the dog that got away. Those are not things, what is adding value to your life? Make a list of the things that aren't. Then I'm going to say to you, as part of that personal constitution, what are your non-negotiables? Like, it's just, that's it. No matter what, I have to be or have these things. Those are what are important to me. And then once everybody feels well rested and focused, then I'm going to say your next thing is to pick up the phone and call Steve. Because if you just do what he says, you will freaking thrive and rock. And we'll build a beautiful company together. We'll build a company where people want to be like us. I always say it's kind of like great parenting, right? You don't want your kids to look at you and go, God, that's what it's like to be a parent. You get fat, you wear sweatpants, you complain, you're miserable. No. What it looks like to be a parent is you take your wife or your husband on vacation every year, because that's the reason you have those kids. You show them that that's what a good life looks like. I would say our real estate company is going to be the same way. We're going to show the world what great real estate looks like. We are going to be, their warrior, their confidant, and we're going to do it with a smile because we're showing up in a peaceful place.
And
Forza fratello.
hold on. Before we get offline here, one of the books I know that had a big impact on you was Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And one of the things that I'm stressing to the group is embrace who you are, and who you are is perfection. Who you are is infinite possibility. Who you are is one with life. Show up, empty mind, open heart, and serve the present moment.
Yep.
Serve the present moment. I know this is a big thing for you. Speak to that.
Yeah. As you know, besides, my family's initials, one of my first tattoos was "Be Present," because I didn't ever want to forget it. Because again, it's become so like overused and cliche that I think a lot of people just discount it. But the reason it's so spoken about is because it is all there is, and it is so valuable. Just like when COVID began, I said, all I need to do is be my best self today. I can't worry about if we're all going to get wiped out, if my stock portfolio is going to go to zero. Those are things I can't affect. What I can affect is just to wake up, smile, cook the family a great breakfast, call my clients and see who needs help. If I can be my best each second, that's all there ever is. There is no tomorrow. That's why I don't believe in anything that is about the end, because that is focusing on the thing that you can't control. What you can control is the moment. And when you're in the moment, and God, I fail often, be really clear. Like, that's why I'm on a constant journey. That's why I read this stuff every morning, because it hones me and it keeps me back on track when I fail. But if you really can embrace the idea that that's all there ever is this moment, if you can glance back and smile at the vacation you had, or, who you used to be, or when you were this or that. But if you keep looking back, you're gonna tweak your neck and get strained. And if you're constantly looking too far in the future, you're gonna trip over and, land on your face. If you just say, all I need to do is make this one phone call a great phone call. All I need to do is make this one dish a great dish. All I need to do is spend this 20 minutes meditating and not think about what I'm doing after or anything else. Just be in this moment. And if each little moment you give it your all and embrace it, then it all works out. And it's such a relief because there's no baggage of worrying about the stuff you can't control.
Beautiful. Jeffrey, as always, such a pleasure. I love you. Thanks for being here.
Love you too, man. Everybody have a beautiful day, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Amazing.
Always great to hear you.
Thank you.